By the time I saw Earth through the tiny window, my hands were already shaking inside the gloves. She looked the same. Blue. White. Calm. The same swirl of clouds over the oceans, the same soft curve of the horizon, the same thin halo of atmosphere glowing against black. For a moment, it was easy to believe nothing had changed since we left. Orion Control, this is Ares 9, I said, voice steady out of muscle memory. Beginning final reentry burn. Copy? Static answered. Not the usual brief hiss while the signal bounced off something unfriendly, not the fuzz that came with solar storms. Just a flat, steady wash of noise. Empty and featureless. Like listening to an untuned frequency that didn't want to land on anything human. I cleared my throat. Ares 9 to Orion, confirming burn in T-30. You're quiet down there, guys. No response. The clock on my console ticked down with indifferent red numbers. The thrusters fired on schedule, the capsule pivoted, and my body pressed into the seat as we knifed into atmosphere. Outside, the black turned to deep blue. Fire licked around the edges of the window. The whole craft shuddered like it wanted to shake me loose. But Mission Control should have been talking nonstop. They should have been rattling off angle, velocity, heart rate, a constant flood of numbers and calm voices. Instead, I descended to the sound of my own breathing and the endless hiss of a channel that refused to catch. Nora, if this is a joke, it's not funny, I muttered, picturing the flight director rolling her eyes at the comms board. Come on. Say something. Silence. The capsule roared as friction turned the air outside into a curtain of flame. I could feel the heat bleeding through the insulation like someone was holding a hand an inch from my face. I swallowed hard and tried to laugh it off. All right, I said, more to myself than to the dead channel. If you're listening to this later, at least subscribe to the recording and tell me in the log where you're hearing it from. Ares 9 coming home. The joke fell flat in the tiny cabin. The numbers kept counting down. The altimeter spun. The world grew larger and larger in the window. But no one answered my signal. Not now. Not when the parachutes deployed with a violent snap. Not when the capsule punched through the last layer of cloud. Not when the blue of the ocean filled my view and the first outlines of coastline appeared like a memory I'd left behind too long. I should have heard cheering. Applause. Crosstalk and clipped instructions. Instead, as my craft fell back toward the planet that had launched me, I realized something I'd only half feared on the long dark journey home. I might be the last astronaut to return to Earth. And Earth might not be waiting. The capsule slammed into the ocean so hard my teeth clicked together. A surge of cold shot up my spine as seawater sprayed across the windows, turning the world into a churning blur of blue and white. Parachute separation confirmed, I said automatically, even though no one was listening. Flotation bags deployed. I waited for the reply out of habit. Nothing. The capsule bobbed violently, waves battering the hull like giant hands trying to peel it open. I forced myself to breathe slow, steady, controlled, my training kicking in even as every instinct screamed that something was genuinely wrong. Mission Control wasn't allowed to go silent. Not during landing. Not ever. Ares 9 to Orion. I tried again, pushing the transmit button harder, like force could carry my voice somewhere it refused to go. Splashdown complete. I repeat, splashdown complete. Standing by for pickup. Static. The kind that hummed, low and endless, like air vibrating in a dead room. I leaned forward. Hello? The sound didn't change. Fine. Maybe the parachute tangled in the antenna. Maybe the frequency drifted. Maybe my receiver fried on entry. Maybe. I unbuckled, hands steady even though my heart wasn't. Through the tiny window, the ocean stretched in every direction, empty, cold, shimmering beneath a quiet sky. No ships. No drones. No rescue helicopters. After 6 months in space, I'd expected noise, waves slap, engine hum, rotor thump, someone yelling coordinates, as the retrieval crew approached. But the sea lay smooth and untouched, like I'd landed in the middle of a painting. I reached up and pulled the emergency release lever. The hatch blew with a sharp hiss of pressure equalizing, the metal door swinging outward to reveal the open sky. Sunlight hit me like a physical thing. Sharp. Warm. Real. I blinked against it, and climbed onto the edge of the floating capsule, suit hissing softly with every movement. The ocean stretched out, dark and wide. Silent. Motionless except for the slow roll of waves. A cold feeling crawled up my spine. Not fear. Recognition. Earth had never been this quiet. I lifted my helmet, searching for any sign, contrail, silhouette, glint of metal, distant ship. Anything. But all I saw was emptiness. Then, a faint sound. Not a gull. Not an engine. Something electronic. I froze. A repeating beep. Coming from inside my suit. My chest tightened. That tone wasn't from mission control. It wasn't even part of standard landing protocol. It was a proximity alert, but not for objects. For signals. A pattern blinked on my wrist display. 3 identical bursts. Repeating. Close. Too close. I swallowed. Orion, what the hell happened down here? No one answered. Only the signal did. The proximity alert continued pulsing on my wrist. 3 bursts. Pause. 3 bursts. Pause. Not Morse. Not a distress beacon. Not any aerospace signal I'd ever trained for. My suit's computer shouldn't even detect something like that. I adjusted the receiver sensitivity. The pattern sharpened, closer, clearer, steady. Coming from land. I turned toward the coast. It lay only a few kilometers away, a quiet stretch of shoreline curving into an empty horizon. From this distance, I should have seen movement. Cars on coastal roads. Birds. Boats. People. But nothing stirred. Not a single ship. Not a single drone. Not even smoke rising from chimneys. Like the whole world had forgotten how to live. A small wave lifted the capsule and dipped it gently, rocking me toward the shore. I took it as a sign. Or momentum. Or maybe I just needed any excuse to move. I activated the emergency raft, a small orange cylinder strapped to the side of the capsule. It deployed with a soft thwump, inflating into a single-person craft. I climbed in, water sloshing against the edges. The signal on my wrist grew stronger. Copy or not? I muttered. I'm coming in. I paddled. The raft slid over the water with soft, steady rhythm, each stroke pushing me closer to land and farther from the idea that this was any kind of normal recovery delay. Halfway to the shore, the world changed. The ocean stilled. Completely. The waves flattened like someone had pressed pause on the sea itself. I stopped paddling. The raft floated on unnaturally calm water, smooth as glass. My breath caught. What? The coast was clearer now. Buildings lined the beach, houses, shops, a long pier reaching into the water. Perfectly intact. No damage. No signs of evacuation. Just empty. I lifted my wrist display. The signal burst again. 3 pulses. But now the final pulse stretched longer, like something was holding the tone. Not malfunctioning. Communicating. I exhaled slowly, voice barely above a whisper. Who's sending this? The raft tapped sand? I hadn't even realized I'd drifted directly into shore. The water here was so still that it didn't even lap against the beach. I stepped out, boots sinking into wet sand, suit heavy but familiar around me. The air smelled wrong. Not bad. Not polluted. Just empty. No salt. No seaweed. No birds. No wind. Like breathing in a room sealed for 1,000 years. I walked up the beach toward the boardwalk, each step sinking quietly, leaving deep footprints behind me, proof I was here, that something still left a mark on this world. My wrist display flashed suddenly. Signal source. 50 meters ahead. I lifted my eyes. At the end of the pier, something blinked. A tiny, faint light. Slow. Measured. Calling. Not to a ship. Not to a plane. Not to a rescue crew. To me. Okay, I whispered, heart thudding. All right. I hear you. I moved forward, each step slower than the last. Because whatever was waiting at the end of that pier, it wasn't human. The boards groaned under my boots as I stepped onto the pier, the sound echoing far louder than it should have in the dead, unmoving air. Each plank creaked like it hadn't felt weight in years, maybe decades. The faint light at the far end blinked again. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then darkness. My wrist display synced to it immediately, its receiver chirping in perfect rhythm, as if the pier itself were communicating. The hairs on my arms rose beneath the suit. Signals were supposed to obey rules. Frequencies. Patterns. Math. This one behaved like something alive. I walked farther, the silence tightening around me. The ocean should have been rolling beneath the wooden slats, waves slapping at the posts. But the water was still, clear as polished glass. I could see straight down to the sand, untouched by tide or current. The world felt paused. Held. The blinking light returned, longer now, brighter, almost urgent. All right, I breathed. I'm here. What do you want me to see? I reached the end of the pier. The light was small. A tiny metal device no larger than a fist. Half submerged in a puddle of seawater. Not military. Not aerospace. Not any civilian beacon I'd ever encountered. It was humming. Not loudly, just enough that I felt it in my chest, vibrating through the wood beneath me. I knelt down slowly. The signal pulsed again, and my wrist display synced instantly, flashing. Alignment detected. Signal lock 100%. Lock on what? I muttered, frowning. This isn't one of ours. I reached toward it. Just before my glove touched the device, the puddle beneath it shimmered, like a reflection flickering out of sync with reality. And then I saw it. Not the device. Not the pier. My face. Reflected in the water. But not moving the way I moved. I jerked my hand back, heart hammering. The reflection blinked. I didn't. The reflection opened its mouth as if speaking. I wasn't. I froze, breath caught halfway in my throat. The reflection leaned closer. Its helmet, my helmet, tilted at an angle mine hadn't moved. It raised its hand. Slowly. Deliberately. Pointing past me. Pointing to something behind me. I turned. The coastline where I'd landed was unchanged. Except for one impossible detail. A single figure now stood on the beach. Motionless. Facing me. Featureless in the bright haze. My pulse thudded in my ears. I looked back down at the puddle. My reflection was gone. Only my own terrified breathing remained. The signal beeped once. Then went silent. I didn't move. Neither did the figure on the beach. It stood exactly at the point where the sand met the dead still water, a dark shape with edges blurred by distance and heat shimmer. Except there wasn't any heat. No wind. No sound. No movement at all. Just a human-shaped outline carved into the silence. My suit's biometric sensors spiked. Heart rate elevated. Breathing irregular. Proximity alert, active. The device on the pier stayed dim, silent now, as if it had already done its job. Not to guide me here, but to make sure I looked behind me. I rose slowly, every creak of the boards echoing across the frozen air. Hello? I called out, projecting my voice toward the beach. Nothing. Not a shift of posture. Not a wave. Not an answer. Just that impossible stillness. My helmet display tried to isolate a signal signature from the shape, but the readout only replied with unknown source. No biometric match. No thermal match. No thermal. No heat. No body temperature. Either it wasn't human, or the world itself had been drained of the things that defined life. I took one step backward on the pier. The figure mirrored me. My breath caught. Another step. Another mirrored movement. But it wasn't copying my hesitation. It moved with unnatural precision, like it already knew what step I would take before I took it. I swallowed. Okay, let's not do this, I muttered, my voice cracking through static inside the helmet. I'm not here to. The figure lifted its arm, the same way my reflection had in the water, and pointed. Not at me. Not at the pier. At the sky. I turned instinctively. The sky was clear. Blue. Empty. Then something flickered across it. A ripple. A distortion. Like the sky had glitched, a seam peeling open for half a heartbeat before snapping back. What was that? The air wavered again. Larger this time. A shiver running down the entire horizon, bending light as if the world were a screen struggling to render itself. The figure lowered its arm, and took a step forward. Onto the surface of the water. It didn't sink. Didn't splash. Just walked. As calmly as someone crossing a street. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But the pier behind me was a dead end, and the water wasn't behaving like water, and the world wasn't behaving like Earth anymore. I forced myself to speak. What happened here? My voice trembled. Where is everyone? The figure stopped halfway to the pier. The air around it vibrated, soft at first, then sharp, my helmet speakers catching the frequency and struggling to interpret it. A voice finally came through. Not male. Not female. Not human. A layered whisper, like 1,000 echoes trying to fit into one mouth. You returned. My knees nearly buckled. Who are you? The figure tilted its head. The sky flickered again. Brighter, longer. Revealing the faint outline of something massive behind the atmosphere. A shape that didn't belong. The figure spoke once more, the words sliding into my bones. You were not meant to come back. And then, the ocean beneath it cracked like glass. The crack spread outward like lightning frozen in water, bright white fissures slicing through the surface of the sea, radiating from the figure's feet and stretching toward the pier. Except, it wasn't breaking. It wasn't even behaving like ice. It was splitting like a reflection. Like the ocean wasn't water anymore, but a mirror trying to hold together under too much truth. The figure didn't move as the cracks spiderwebbed beneath it. It stood anchored in place, watching me with a stillness so absolute it made my heartbeat feel intrusive. My suit alarms lit up. Atmospheric distortion detected. Seismic anomaly unknown. Local reality unstable. Local reality? NASA didn't teach us how to handle that. The boards under my boots trembled, not shaking, but subtly bending, like gravity itself was shifting sideways for a breath before snapping back. I took a step toward the middle of the pier, instinct driving me away from the widening cracks crawling toward me across the ocean. The figure raised its head, the faceless silhouette angling in a way that made my neck prickle. The whispering voice slipped through my helmet. You are not aligned. I swallowed hard. Aligned with what? The cracks deepened. The ocean's false surface peeled back in jagged shards, exposing blackness. Not deep water. Not seafloor. A void. A hollow absence swallowing the sea from beneath, widening with each brittle break. I stared frozen. What did you do? The figure didn't answer. It stepped forward again. Each step extending the cracks. Each step bending the air around it. Each step tightening the vice of pressure closing around my chest. My wrist display started vibrating violently. Signal interference. Source, approaching. Distance, 37 meters. 34 meters. 31 meters. The figure was nearly at the end of the pier now. I stumbled backward. Stop! I shouted. Just stop. Talk to me. The world flickered again. The sky. The sand. The pier. My own reflection in the visor. All glitching like a corrupted video frame. A wave of dizziness hit me so hard I braced against a post, gasping. The figure paused. Not out of consideration, but because something else was happening behind it. A new crack tore through the horizon itself. A jagged tear of light that exposed a dark, swirling shape beyond the sky. A shape that pulsed. Alive. Watching. My helmet display strained to process the visual. Dimensional distortion. Source signal, same origin. Threat level unknown. The figure's voice broke through the static again, clearer this time. You returned after the world was taken. That is your mistake. Taken? Taken by who? I whispered. The figure lifted its arm again. But not to point at the sky this time. It pointed directly at me. The ocean light cracks surged toward the pier, ripping across the water's surface like white fire. The boards beneath my feet began to split. The pier groaned. And the entire world seemed to tilt sideways as something enormous shifted behind reality's curtain. I didn't have time to think. I ran. The cracks chased me. The figure didn't. It simply whispered once more, the voice vibrating through the world. You should have stayed gone. The pier buckled behind me as I sprinted toward the shore, boards snapping like brittle bones beneath my boots. My breath turned harsh inside the helmet, every inhale loud and panicked as the cracks in the water raced alongside me, jagged white fractures tearing across the surface of the ocean in perfect sync with my footsteps. It was following me. Not the figure. Not whatever hid behind the sky. The signal. The same pulse that had guided me to the pier now chased me off it, the proximity alert on my wrist strobing red. Distortion approaching. Distortion approaching. Distortion approaching. Move, move, move! I gasped, leaping over a shattered plank. The beach rose ahead, silent as stone. Halfway down the pier, a deafening crack split the air behind me. I risked a glance over my shoulder. The end of the pier, the place where the figure had stood, was gone. Not broken. Not fallen into the ocean. Erased. A clean, circular absence where matter simply stopped existing. My legs nearly gave out. A high-pitched ringing filled my helmet, the same tone I'd heard during re-entry, rising and falling like a mechanical heartbeat. My wrist display synced to it without permission, flooded with a stream of unreadable data. Increment, increment, increment. Error. Error. Source unknown. Translation incomplete. What do you want from me? I shouted, voice cracking. The signal responded. Not with data. With gravity. A sudden force yanked my entire body sideways, nearly throwing me off the pier entirely. I slammed into the railing, suit scraping wood, ribs flaring with pain. The pull grew stronger, like the world had tilted into a slope, dragging everything toward the widening void in the ocean. The cracks had converged into a dark vortex, spinning slowly, impossibly, swallowing the sea itself. And it wanted me. My boots skidded against the boards, traction failing. If I slipped, that gravitational whirlpool would pull me in like a dropped stone. I grabbed a support beam, fingers tightening until pain shot through my arm. Stop! I shouted again. I didn't do anything. I just came home. The windless air vibrated. A voice. Not the figures. Not human. Not singular. Slid through the soundscape. Return to your origin. I did. This is my origin. The voice sharpened, splitting into layers, overlapping like 1,000 versions of the same sentence spoken slightly out of sync. Your world is not here. Your time is not here. Your signal does not belong. The pull intensified. My grip slipped half an inch. No, 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 no. I leaned into the post, digging my heels into the fading wood. I'm not going anywhere. Earth is my home. The air around me pulsed. My visor flickered. My reflection distorted, not matching my movements again. Behind me, the figure stepped onto what remained of the pier, unharmed by the cracks, unharmed by the impossible gravity swallowing the world. It raised its arm one final time. Not pointing. Reaching. Toward me. You crossed the threshold, the layered voice said. You brought the signal back with you. The boards beneath me shattered in a chain reaction. My fingers slipped. The world tilted. And the vortex pulled. I was falling. Falling toward the impossible. Falling toward the place where water had become mirror. And mirror had become void. The moment the pier gave way, my stomach lurched into my throat. Not from falling. From the absence of falling. Gravity didn't behave. Instead of plunging downward, my body drifted. Sideways. Upward. Downward. All at once. Like the rules of physics had been dropped into a blender and set to pulse. The void beneath me wasn't a hole. It wasn't water. It wasn't even space. It was unmaking. A place where reflections died. Where sound didn't echo. Where my own thoughts felt delayed by half a second. My suit alarms erupted in a chorus of panic tones. Gravity anomaly. Orientation, lost. Reality anchor unstable. Heart rate, critical. A scream tore from my throat as I tumbled, but the sound died instantly inside the helmet, silenced not by air, but by the void's refusal to acknowledge vibration. Then, without warning, I stopped. Suspended midair above the swirling abyss, frozen like an insect trapped in amber. My limbs hung weightless. My breathing echoed inside my suit, loud and ragged. The vortex turned beneath me. Not sucking me in anymore, but studying me. Light fractured across its surface, bending into impossible angles, shapes I had no name for. The void wasn't empty. It was full. Full of patterns, signals, distortions, fragments of a language only the universe itself might understand. A whisper crept into my helmet. Not from the outside. From inside the void. Observe. My vision twisted. The world around me dissolved. Not fading. Not glitching. But peeling away like layers of paint coming off an old mural. Beneath those layers lay images. Scenes. Memories that weren't mine. A launch pad under a red sun. A field of structures shaped like satellite dishes, but older, organic. A planet cracked in half, leaking light instead of lava. Millions of reflections walking in unison across a frozen sea. A figure, the same one from the beach, standing at the center of all of it, unchanged across time. My heart pounded. What are you showing me? The images sped up. Missions failing. Signals bouncing through space. Signals repeating. Signals returning. Earth receiving something it never knew it caught. Then one final image. A capsule entering Earth's atmosphere. Mine. Ares 9. Descending in flames. But the reflection in the capsule window wasn't me. It was the figure. Watching. Waiting. As if it had been there from the beginning. My body trembled uncontrollably. No, that's not possible. I launched from Earth. You couldn't have. The void pulsed. My helmet flickered. The whisper returned, louder now. Your world folded long before you returned. You are the last signal of a dead timeline. My chest seized. What does that even mean? The void surged upward. Blinding light consuming my vision. Until everything went white. No up. No down. No pier. No ocean. Just the signal. Pulsing. Calling. Claiming. And then, with a violent snap, I was somewhere else. I hit the ground hard enough to knock the breath out of me. Sand. Cold, dry sand. Not the beach. Not the pier. Not the world I'd just fallen out of. I rolled onto my back, gasping inside the helmet as the sky above me swam into focus. Not blue. Not even close. A pale, washed-out white, like a light bulb flickering behind frosted glass. No sun. No clouds. Just diffuse brightness with no source, as if the sky were a blank screen waiting for someone to draw the world back in. My suit's sensors went berserk. Atmosphere unknown. Radiation variable. Temporal field unstable. Local time nonlinear. Nonlinear. I sat up, shaking. The sand around me stretched in every direction. Flat, endless, untouched. No footprints. No wind marks. No life. A desert that felt like it had been printed minutes ago. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Where am I?" A chirp sounded from my wrist. The same signal pulse. But softer now. Sadder even. Pause. I stood slowly, every muscle trembling. The horizon rippled faintly, bending in a way that made nausea twist through my stomach. This wasn't Earth. Not the real one. Not the one I left behind. It was a copy. A hollow projection. A place that remembered Earth but couldn't recreate it fully. A dead timeline. "Why did you bring me here?" I asked the air, turning slowly. "What am I supposed to see?" The ground rumbled. Not an earthquake. A resonance. A deep hum that vibrated through my bones like someone plucking the strings of reality. Then, shapes emerged from the rippling horizon. At first they were just silhouettes. Hundreds of them. But as they came closer, I realized something that froze my blood. They were human. Or they looked human. Men. Women. Children. A city's worth of people walking toward me across the sand. But their faces were blank. Smooth where eyes and mouths should be, as if sculpted from unfinished clay. And they weren't walking like people. Every figure stepped in perfect unison. Like a single mind moving 1,000 bodies. My breath hitched. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no, this isn't real." My helmet HUD flickered violently, trying to read them. Biometric. None. Thermal, none. Neural, none. Identity, mirrored projections. Status, non-living. Mirrored projections? Copies of who? A voice drifted across the empty world. "This is what remains when a signal survives, but the world does not." I spun around. The figure from the pier stood behind me. No longer distant, no longer hesitant. Closer now. Clearer. Defined. Its edges sharpened with every step it took toward me, its form building itself out of the white sky like a glitch resolving into focus. "You said," I managed, swallowing hard, "that I brought something back with me. You returned with the last reflection of your world," the figure replied. Not spoken, but embedded directly into the air. "What does that mean?" The figure looked at the blank-faced crowd approaching, their synchronized steps shaking the ground like a heartbeat. "Your Earth did not survive the signal. But your reflection did." "My reflection?" The figure pointed at the crowd. "These are echoes of what was lost. Your world gone hollow, its timeline collapsed." I stared, numb. "And me?" My voice barely held. "Why am I still here?" The figure's head tilted a fraction. "Because you left. You were outside the collapse. And now..." It stepped closer. The sky shivered. The crowd stopped. "You are the only anchor keeping this dead timeline from dissolving completely." My heartbeat thudded in my ears. "I don't understand." The figure leaned in, its voice becoming a whisper made of 1,000 overlapping tones. "You do not belong here, astronaut. And now the timeline wants itself back." The ground cracked under my feet. The crowd surged. And the sand began to pull me under. The sand beneath my boots liquefied. Not like water. Not like quicksand. But like gravity itself had forgotten what direction it was supposed to pull. My legs sank to the ankles in an instant. I struggled, kicking, clawing upward, but the ground wasn't grabbing. It was absorbing. Pulling me downward like I was a misplaced piece being snapped back into the wrong puzzle. The blank-faced figures marched closer in perfect synchronization. Hundreds of reflection people. Thousands. Their footsteps made no sound. Their bodies cast no shadows. They were the memory of a world that had already died, converging on the only thing that didn't belong here. Me. My breath came fast inside the helmet, fogging the visor before the ventilation cleared it. "What do you want from me?" I shouted at the figure. The sand swallowed my calves. The figure stepped forward, unhurried, almost gentle, while the ground fractured around us like eggshells. "You are the last tether." "Tether to what?" "To a world that no longer exists." "That's impossible." "I saw Earth. I landed there." "You saw its echo," the figure replied. "Not its living form." The ground shuddered like a pulse beneath me. The blank-faced crowd halted just a few meters away. Every head tilted toward me at the exact same angle. A motion so synchronized it made my skin crawl. The figure raised a hand. The crowd mimicked it instantly. An entire horizon of silent reflections, all pointing at me. My breath caught. The whispering voice filled the air again. "The Echo World wants its signal back." My visor flickered. Data streamed across the display, coordinates, timestamps, locations that made no sense. Temporal loop detected. You are outside your event origin. Timeline correction initiated. No! I struggled harder as the sand reached my knees. I didn't cause this. I didn't bring anything. You brought yourself. And that's wrong? Not wrong, the figure said, head tilting. Impossible. The sand clamped around my thighs. The crowd took one collective step closer. 1,000 blank faces, empty and waiting. What happens if I go under? I whispered. The figure's answer was immediate. The echo collapses. The tether breaks. Your existence is overwritten. My heart slammed into my ribs. You're saying I'll die. Die. The figure paused, as if tasting the concept. No. You will be corrected. The sand surged up to my waist. I thrashed, panic clawing up my throat, but every movement only made the pull stronger. The figure crouched before me, expressionless, studying me like an artifact. You were not meant to return, astronaut. Why? Why not? Because your world ended the moment the signal touched it. And you. The figure leaned closer. You are not from the timeline you think you are. The words hit harder than the gravity pulling me under. What does that mean? I gasped. It means, the figure whispered, and the entire horizon bent inward. You came home to the wrong Earth. The sand snapped upward, swallowing me to the chest. I screamed. The crowd reached for me. Reality fractured around the edges. A deafening, growing hum filled my ears. The same hum from re-entry. The same hum from the pier. The same hum that had been following me all along. My wrist display erupted in flashing red. Temporal collapse imminent. Escape vector required. Escape vector unknown. The figure reached out a hand, inches from my visor. There is only one path left. What path? The origin of the signal. And then the ground gave way completely. I plunged into the void. There was no falling. No acceleration. No wind. No gravity. I plunged downward into a space that wasn't space. A depth without distance. A descent without motion. Like being dropped into a thought instead of a place. My suit screamed alarms, but the sounds were muted, smothered by the dense nothingness around me. Environment non-physical. Temporal position unknown. Spatial position undefined. Anchor lost. Lost. The word hit harder than all the warnings. I tried to breathe slowly, to stay calm, but my chest tightened against the suit as the darkness shifted. Not just around me. Beneath me. A faint glow pulsed far below, deep within the void. 3 soft bursts of light. Pause. The signal. My signal. Or something using it. I drifted toward it. Or it rose toward me. Or either of us moved and reality simply rearranged itself to make movement unnecessary. It didn't matter. The glow became clearer, revealing a structure suspended in the void. Not metal. Not organic. Not technology. Something ancient. Something vast. A colossal sphere made of intersecting rings, rotating at impossible angles. Each ring covered in faint glowing symbols. Each symbol pulsing in sync with the familiar 3B pattern. My breath hitched. This wasn't human. This wasn't alien. This wasn't even built. It was grown. A structure of living geometry. A thought machine. A signal engine. And it was waiting. The moment I neared the sphere, my wrist display exploded with data. Unreadable fragments, looping numbers, coordinates and dimensions that didn't exist. Inside the helmet, the pulsing whisper returned. You seek understanding. My skin crawled. I seek home, I said, voice shaking. Home collapsed. Then send me back before it did. The rings of the sphere shifted. A grinding motion I felt in my bones instead of my ears. The timeline rejected itself. That makes no sense. When your world received the signal, it responded. I blinked. What signal? The one I brought back? The whisper sharpened. No. The one you followed. Pain lanced behind my eyes. A memory trying to surface. Pre-launch. A routine systems check. A deep space anomaly pinged on the long-range sensors, faint and almost identical to background cosmic noise. We tracked it for days. A repeating sequence. 3 bursts. My voice cracked inside the helmet. You're saying it wasn't background radiation. It was the call. And we answered it. I whispered. The sphere's rings aligned suddenly, snapping into configuration with a thunderous psychic impact. Like someone slamming a door inside the universe. The void trembled. Images flashed around me. Not visions, not memories. Corrections. Earth flickering between states. Cities vanishing and reappearing. People dissolving like mist. Time collapsing inward like a dying star. And then, Ares 9. My capsule. Locked in orbit. Unchanged. Untouched. Out of sync with the collapse. That's why I survived, I whispered. I was off-world. You were unaligned. And when I came back, you returned with a signal that no longer had a world to receive it. The sphere tightened its rotation. The void dimmed. The pull strengthened. You must return to the origin, the whisper said. I don't know what that means. The whisper grew louder, layered, echoing through my skull. Return to the place where the signal first touched you. Return to the moment the universe diverged. How? Show me. The sphere shuddered. A crack of golden light tore across its surface. The void rippled around me. My suit rattled. The whisper became a roar. A line. Light consumed everything. The light swallowed me whole. A blinding, golden flood that burned without heat, tore without pain, and reshaped the void around me like molten glass cooling into form. My body felt stretched, thinned, folded through itself, as if I were being threaded through a needle too small to exist. And then, impact. Not physical. Temporal. The light collapsed inward, forming a tunnel, no, a timeline, tight and narrow and crackling with unstable energy. I hurtled through it, pulled by a force that felt both external and deeply personal, like gravity anchored to my own heartbeat. Images flashed around me. Launch preparation. Final checks. The countdown. My crew waving. The rocket igniting. Scenes from my past. But they shimmered like reflections, slightly wrong, edges thinning like worn film. Then the whispering voice threaded through the tunnel. You are approaching your origin. My origin? I gasped, tumbling through collapsing time. You mean my launch? No. The voice fractured and doubled. Earlier. The tunnel tightened. Space compressed. Something in me, my memory, my identity, pulled taut like a line ready to snap. Earlier still. Flashes. Astronaut selection. The interview room. the medical scans, the psychological evaluation. All blurred, flickering. The tunnel squeezed me harder. Earlier. A sting behind my eyes. Childhood memories surfaced. A schoolyard. A telescope. A voice saying, "Look up! Make a wish!" Fireworks. Stars. Night. I cried out. This hurt in a way the void hadn't. "What are you trying to show me?" The voice, no longer just a whisper, filled the collapsing tunnel. "The signal did not originate at your launch. The signal did not originate in space. The signal originated in you." The tunnel convulsed. I was thrown through an expanding ring of light and landed on steel flooring. I stumbled to my knees, breath shuddering, vision blurring with afterimages. I knew this place. Smelled it. Felt it. The gentle hum of electronics. The sterile chill of machinery. The curved walls lined with monitors. Mission control. Earth. Pre-launch. My chest tightened. No. Not mission control. A simulation. Monitors flickered with corrupted footage. Console lights blinked out of rhythm. Time itself seemed to repeat frames. A blinking cursor. A swaying cable. A coffee cup tipping then untipping. I stood slowly. A figure appeared on the far side of the room. Not the faceless reflection creature. But me. My pre-launch self. Head bent over a console, checking telemetry. I staggered backward. No, this isn't real. My other self paused, lifted his head, and froze mid-motion like a paused video. The lights flickered. The walls bent inward. The whisper wrapped around me like cold air. "This is the moment your world diverged." "I don't understand," I whispered, trembling. "The moment the signal touched you." The frozen version of me flickered. Once. Twice. And then his chest emitted a faint glow. 3 pulses. Pause. My blood ran cold. No, that can't be. I wasn't exposed to anything, I never. The whisper tightened. "You are the carrier. You always were." My other self. The one from this moment. Turned slowly toward me. Eyes glowing. Skin fracturing like cracked glass. He opened his mouth. And the signal poured out. A sound not meant for human ears. A pattern that bent the air. A shape that was not sound and not light and not language. Every console exploded in a shower of sparks. The floor split. The walls peeled away. Time fractured into mirrored shards. My other self stepped toward me, face glitching between mine, the figures, and something older. "The signal came to you first." "No, stop. And you carried it into space." "Please." "And when you returned." The entire simulation cracked. The timeline collapsed. Then the world shattered like glass. And I fell again. I fell through the shattered simulation like a stone dropped into a bottomless well. Except there was no falling motion, no wind, no sense of distance. Just breaking. Frames of reality spun around me like shards. Mission control exploding into static. My own face splitting into reflections. The faceless crowd reaching across timelines. The void sphere pulsing. The figure pointing. Earth flickering between versions of itself. Each fragment brushed against me as it passed, sparking images that weren't mine. Memories of worlds that died. Of signals echoing across collapsing universes. Of timelines snapping under the weight of something they were never meant to receive. And beneath all of them, my heartbeat. Too loud. Too strong. Too present. Like an engine powering the collapse. I burst through the fragments into a new space. A dark expanse lit only by faint symbols drifting like constellations. My boots hit a reflective floor that rippled under my weight like liquid mercury. The echo of my landing traveled outward in a perfect ring. And from the darkness, he stepped out. The figure. But now he wasn't a silhouette. He wasn't blurred or distant. He looked like me. Not exactly. Older, maybe? More tired. More fractured. His skin glowed along fine cracks, faint lines of light pulsing underneath like something struggling to stay contained. "Who are you?" I whispered. He tilted his head. The same motion he'd made on the shore. "You know." "No," I said, shaking my head violently. "No, I don't. You're not me. Not yourself." He stepped closer, the floor rippling beneath him. "Your reflection." "My what?" "The part of you that answered the signal." I stumbled back. "That's impossible. I never heard anything during training, or selection, or—" "You heard it your whole life." A pulse echoed across the chamber. Pause. The same rhythm that had chased me across the ocean, across timelines, across realities, now vibrated directly from the floor, from the walls, from the air inside my lungs. My reflection. My impossible reflection. Raised a glowing hand to his chest. A faint symbol glowed over his heart. The same one pulsing in the void sphere. My stomach dropped. "You're saying the signal was inside me before the mission?" "Not inside." He tapped his chest. "Aligned to." My mind raced. "No. No, I would have died on launch. Or the medical scans, someone would have seen. Your world saw nothing. Your world was blind to the signal. Images flared around us. Earth's technologies, weak and dim compared to the geometric structures in the void. Radars bouncing echoes back into silence. Scanners registering anomalies as noise. Scientists dismissing repeating patterns as cosmic background radiation. You were the only antenna capable of receiving it. Ice filled my veins. I backed away, breath hitching. "You're saying I'm the reason everything happened? That I'm the reason my Earth, collapsed?" My reflection blinked. "You were the moment." "What moment?" He pointed upward. The chamber's ceiling dissolved into a swirling vision. Launch day. My rocket. Ares 9. Blasting off through blue sky. White contrails tearing the air. But superimposed over the rocket was something else. A faint ripple of energy passing through my body as I ascended, splitting my reflection from my physical form. "You left the timeline aligned," my reflection said softly, "and returned misaligned." I stared, numb. "And that broke reality?" "It strained it." "And now?" "Now it wants to correct itself." The chamber trembled. The signal pulsed harder. My reflection reached toward me. Not threatening. Not angry. But with something like resignation. "There is only one path left, astronaut." My voice broke. "What path?" "Accept the signal. Become the origin. And free the timeline from your tether." My heart slammed against my ribs. "You're saying I have to sacrifice myself?" His eyes dimmed with something almost human. "You already have." The floor gave way beneath me. And I was falling into the core of the signal. I didn't fall into darkness this time. I fell into sound. A vast chamber, if you could even call it a chamber, unfolded around me, built not of matter but of vibrations, each tone a thread holding some impossible architecture together. The air wasn't air. The floor wasn't floor. Everything, space, time, direction, felt composed from the signal itself. 3 pulses. Pause. Only now, inside the heart of it, the pattern wasn't faint. It was deafening. It was alive. I landed on a surface of shifting symbols, my boots sinking slightly as if stepping into thick light. Every breath I took caused the markings beneath me to ripple, like the signal was reading me in return. My voice echoed strangely. "What is this place?" A whisper came from everywhere at once. "Origin." The word vibrated through my bones. Across the chamber, something stirred. A mass of intertwined rings and beams of light, rotating in perfect mathematical harmony, forming a ghostly structure the size of a small moon. The core of the signal. Its pulse was synced to my heartbeat. No. My heartbeat synced to its. The thought made my skin crawl. "You sent the signal to Earth." I whispered. Didn't you? The core flickered, expanding and contracting like a breathing organism. We sent the signal to many worlds. So Earth wasn't special. Earth responded. My stomach twisted. How? Humans didn't even hear it. Not really. They heard through you. The chamber dimmed around me, leaving only the core in full brightness. The rings spun faster, symbols stretching into long rays of light until they formed a shape. Not human. Not alien. But a silhouette reminiscent of both. A construct. A messenger. A reflection of the ones who built this place. You called me, I said, barely breathing. But why me? Why a random astronaut from Earth? The silhouette turned, slow and graceful, its form flickering like a glitching star. Because you were already aligned. What does that even mean? Some minds resonate with the origin. Some hearts vibrate at the frequency of collapse. Some souls hear the signal before they are born. My chest tightened painfully. What are you saying? That I was chosen? You were inevitable. The chamber floor cracked outward from my feet. Not breaking, but opening, revealing a swirling field of reflected versions of myself. Hundreds of me. Thousands. Each at a different age, in a different moment. Running, sleeping, staring at the stars, sitting alone in the cockpit of Ares 9, floating in the void, screaming as the pier collapsed. My throat went dry. These are timelines. No. The voice rippled. These are echoes of you. Your presence tears holes through the worlds you traverse. The reflections merged into one another, collapsing into a shattered mosaic of my life. My knees weakened. So I'm the problem. You are the tether. The last anchor of a broken timeline. As long as you exist unaligned, reality cannot heal. I stared up at the core, pulse pounding. So you brought me here to what? Erase me? The silhouette stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the shifting constellations in its translucent form. Not erase. Align. The chamber brightened, symbols flaring beneath my feet. Accept the signal fully. Become one with the origin. And the echoes will collapse into unity. A single timeline. Whole again. A cold tear slid down my cheek inside the helmet. You're asking me to give up everything. You lost everything the moment you returned. That broke me. The truth I'd been running from slammed into me. My Earth was gone. My home. My people. My timeline. All lost the moment I re-entered a world that could no longer support me. I whispered hoarsely. And if I don't align? The answer was immediate. Then infinite echoes will continue to fracture existence. Worlds will mirror and break. You will wander forever through dead timelines. The core's light warmed, almost gently. You came home to the wrong Earth. But you can still give another one a chance. I closed my eyes. For the first time since splashdown. I wasn't afraid. Just tired. So what happens to me? The voice softened. You become what you were meant to be. The first human origin. The bridge. The signal that carries forward. The chamber floor dissolved beneath me. Light surged into my chest. And the universe inhaled. The light swallowed me again. Not violently this time. Not like the shattering, tearing collapses I'd been falling through. This light felt gentle. Like warm water closing over a wound that had waited too long to heal. I felt my body dissolving. But not dying. Unraveling. Thread by thread. Into something that wasn't flesh. Wasn't bone. Wasn't constrained by the shape I'd worn my entire life. The signal pulsed steadily inside me. Pause. Only now I understood. It had never been calling to me. It had always been calling for me. I wasn't its prisoner. I was its echo. Its carrier. Its final missing piece. As the rings of the core rotated around me. Slow now, reverent. I felt the fragments of all those broken timelines brushing against my dissolving form. The empty beach. The silent pier. the faceless crowd, the frozen sky, the void beneath the ocean, the echo of myself standing on the other side of reality. Each fragment hesitated, as if waiting for permission, before collapsing inward, folding themselves together, along the line of my heartbeat. I wasn't falling anymore. I was ascending. A warmth bloomed across my chest, right where my reflection had glowed. A shape formed in the light. A circle, intersected by 3 pulses. The symbol of the origin. My symbol. My final thought as a human flickered through me like a fading radio transmission. I never made it home. And the universe answered. You are home. The chamber opened like a blooming star. A single beam of light stretched outward, into the darkness between worlds. Pure, stable, aligned. A new signal. A human signal. My signal. It carried no collapse. No distortion. No fracture. Only continuity. Only unity. Only hope. As I dissolved fully into the beam. Into the pulse. Into the origin. I felt something extraordinary. Not isolation. Not emptiness. Connection. As if every world the signal touched from this moment on might carry a piece of me toward a future, where timelines didn't die, didn't fold, didn't collapse under the weight of impossible echoes. A future born not from fear, but from alignment, from harmony, from choosing to become the bridge. The light grew brighter than thought, brighter than memory, brighter than self. And in the final moment before I merged completely, I sent one message. Out into the universe. This is Aries 9. Final transmission. If you hear this, you're not alone. And with that, I became the signal. Thanks for listening to this story from Last Signal. If you enjoyed this, please like the video, subscribe for more end-of-the-world sleep stories, and comment your favorite moment. Your support truly helps this channel grow.